U.S. Vice President calls for immediate ceasefire Israel-Gaza war. Shehbaz Sharif elected Pakistan Prime Minister. Good afternoon, I'm Shuhaida Arifin and this is World Today. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and forcefully pressed Israel to increase the flow of aid to ease what she called inhumane conditions and a humanitarian catastrophe among the Palestinian people. Harris's commands were among the sharpest yet by a senior leader of the U.S. government, calling for Israel to alleviate the conditions in Gaza.
What we are seeing every day in Gaza is devastating. We have seen reports of families eating leaves or animal feed, women giving birth to malnourished babies with little or no medical care, and children dying from malnutrition and dehydration. As I have said many times, too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. And just a few days ago, we saw hungry, desperate people approach aid trucks, simply trying to secure food for their families after weeks of nearly no aid reaching northern Gaza. And they were met with gunfire and chaos. Our hearts break for the victims of that horrific tragedy and for all the innocent people in Gaza who are suffering from what is clearly a humanitarian catastrophe. People in Gaza are starving. The conditions are inhumane. And our common humanity compels us to act.
The Vice President, who's speaking at an event in Selma, Alabama, to commemorate the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when state troopers beat peaceful protesters, urged Hamas to accept a deal to release hostages that would kickstart a 6-week ceasefire and allow more aid to flow. Israel boycotted Gaza ceasefire talks in Cairo on Sunday after Hamas rejected its demand for a complete list naming hostages that are still alive. A delegation of the European Parliament visited Egypt's Arish on Sunday, where they checked aid in the warehouse before being sent to the Gaza. Udo Bullmann, the chair of the European Parliament's Subcommittee on Human Rights, also saw the warehouse where aid items for Gaza that were rejected by Israel were stored. He took the opportunity to appeal to everybody to let in what is needed to be let in for the currently ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The delegation also visited Palestinian medical evacuees in Arish Hospital. The war was unleashed in October, since Israeli forces have killed more than 30,000 Palestinians, based on numbers by Gaza health authorities, with thousands more dead feared unrecovered under rubble. Swathes of Gaza Strip have been laid to waste. Nearly the entire population has been made homeless, and the United Nations estimates that a quarter of Gazans are on the verge of a man-made famine. The European Union believes a ceasefire is the only way, and the most urgent thing to do now is to prevent thousands of people from being killed, innocent lives from being lost. The death toll from a Russian drone attack on an apartment block in the southern port of Odessa has risen to 10 after rescuers have found the bodies of another mother and baby. According to Odessa Governor Oleg Kipa, a Russian drone crashed into a residential building in Odessa on Saturday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said casualties could have been avoided if Ukraine had not faced delays in arms deliveries. The Prosecutor General's office said the 8-month-old baby was one of the 3 children to die in the attack. In the wake of the deadly attack, Zelensky called on Western allies to boost Ukraine's air defenses. Sunday was declared a day of mourning in Odessa. Ukraine is currently struggling for resources as the war grinds into its 3rd year with a $60 billion aid package held up in the United States Congress. Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, calling it a special military operation to denazify its neighbor. Kiev and its Western allies call the war, which 2 years later continues to wound and kill civilians nearly on a daily basis, an unprovoked land grab. Australia said on Monday that the Pacific and Southeast Asian countries are facing serious defense threats as it set aside more funds for a maritime security pact with ASEAN countries during a summit with the Southeast Asian bloc. Its Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Australia would invest 64 million Australian dollars, equivalent to $41.8 million over 4 years, including 40 million in new funding. The funds would be used to contribute to the security and prosperity of the region, consistent with the priorities of Southeast Asian countries. Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs Enrique Manalo said the South China Sea was of the strategic importance that holds a promising future. The Philippines is ramping up efforts to counter what it describes as China's aggressive activities in the South China Sea, which has also become a flashpoint for Chinese and United States tensions around naval operation. China claims almost the entire South China Sea, a conduit for more than $3 trillion of annual shipborne commerce, including parts claimed by the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. The Permanent Court of Arbitration in 2016 said China's claim had no legal basis. Pakistan newly formed parliament on Sunday elected Shehbaz Sharif as Prime Minister for a second time, 3 weeks after uncertain national elections caused delays in the formation of a coalition government. National Assembly Speaker Ayaz Sadiq announced Sharif was elected the new Prime Minister, having secured 201 votes above the required 169 votes in the House. Contribute to the security and prosperity of the region, consistent with the priorities of Southeast Asian countries. Philippine Secretary of Foreign Affairs Enrique Manalo said the South China Sea was of the strategic importance that holds a promising future. The Philippines is ramping up efforts to counter what it describes as China's aggressive activities in the South China Sea, which has also become a flashpoint for Chinese. It was met with loud protest from the Sunni Ittihad Council SIC party, backed by Han. The lawmakers called for Han's release and shouted slogans alleging Sharif had come to power through electoral rigging. The election was marred by a mobile internet shutdown, arrest and violence in its build-up, and the unusually delayed results triggered accusations that the vote was rigged. Sharif returned to the role he held until August, when Parliament was dissolved ahead of the elections and a caretaker government took over. No single party won a majority. Sharif, 72, is the younger brother of 3-time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who spearheaded the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz (PMLN) party's election campaign. France's far-right Rassemblement National (RN) on Sunday launched its campaign for the European election at an event in Marseille, where prominent figure Marine Le Pen and the party's head of list Jordan Bardella slammed the bloc's handling of immigration and Green Deal. The far right is seen making considerable gains in June's European Parliament election, capitalizing on recent farmers' protests around the bloc and Europeans dissatisfied with the handling of immigration in recent years. RN President and rising political star Bardella said the European election will be a referendum on immigration. He also criticized the EU flagship law to restore nature, which has garnered complaints from protesting farmers who say they impose excessive bureaucracy into agricultural workers. Bardella was delivering the closing address of the meeting in front of a huge poster with the campaign slogan, "France is back, Europe returns to life," to a larger crowd waving French flags. According to a February poll by BVA, RN is expected to emerge as the biggest French party as it did in 2019, but this time potentially by a much larger margin, with as much as 30% of the vote. That would be well ahead of President Emmanuel Macron's centrist alliance on 18%. A bitterly fought election in Belgrade, a focus of widespread allegations of a fraud during Serbia's local and parliamentary polls in December, will be rerun. The elections triggered weeks of protest and legal action over alleged fraud by President Alexander Vučić's ruling Serbian Progressive Party SNS. International observers reported irregularities, including vote buying and ballot box stuffing. The OSCE's Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights said the elections were dominated by Vučić, a right-wing populist, which, together with the ruling party's systemic advantages, created unjust conditions for contestants. In Belgrade, the opposition accused the government of allowing voters from neighboring Bosnia to cast ballots illegally in the vote for control of the capital. Acting Mayor Alexander Sapic said the decision to repeat the vote had nothing to do with the fraud accusations or the ruling party's failure to win a majority of seats on the Belgrade City Council. The main opposition, Serbia Against Violence Alliance SPN, hailed the decision. The Speaker of the Serbian Parliament Speaker now has 30 days to call for a new election in Belgrade. Coming up, at least a dozen killed in Haiti after gang members stormed the country's main prison. Now, at least a dozen people died as gang members attacked the main prison in Haiti's capital, triggering a breakout by several thousand inmates. P.S. Barron's executive director of the National Network for Defense of Human Rights said that only around 100 of the National Penitentiary estimated 3,800 inmates were still inside the facility after the gang assault overnight Saturday. Haiti has been wrecked for decades by grinding poverty, violence, political instability, and recurring natural disasters, but the country plunged further into chaos with the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse in 2021. Powerful, well-armed gangs run rampant and control much of the capital, Port-au-Prince. In a statement, the Haitian government said police tried to repel the gang attack against the prison and at another facility called Croix des Bouquets. It said these attacks left several wounded among the prison staff and inmates. Aspirants said it was not immediately clear how many inmates escaped from the second prison. Gangs aiming to oust Prime Minister Ariel Henry have wreaked havoc in Port-au-Prince since Thursday. Henry was in Kenya on Friday trying to muster support for an international police support mission, which Nairobi has agreed to lead. Venezuelan soldiers have evicted more than 1,200 people from an illegal gold mine that claimed 16 lives when it collapsed last month. The group included 131 miners evicted from the Bula Loca mine in the Bolivar state in the Amazon region. Evictions were continuing, as was the dismantling of illegal mining structures erected in the La Paragua Forest Reserve. The Bolivar region is rich in gold, diamonds, iron, bauxite, quartz, and coltan. Aside from state mines, there's also a booming industry of illegal extraction. 16 people died when the Bula Loca open pit mine caved in last month. Now, in December last year, 12 died when a mine in the indigenous community of Ikabaru in the same region collapsed. The NGO Sos Orinoco says at least 40 people died in 17 mining incidents in the Bolivar and Amazonas states between 2017 and 2022. Authorities say illegal miners fell and burn trees, contaminate water and engage in underground drilling that is damaging to the environment and harmful to the indigenous communities. Last July, President Nicolas Maduro ordered the deployment of the armed forces to counter a scourge he said was destroying the Amazon of South America and Venezuela. Police under the charge of Lower Saxony authorities conducted a second raid in Berlin on Sunday evening after an earlier attempt to find two Red Army faction RAF suspects ended unsuccessfully. Police said that about 130 officers had been on the ground looking for Ernst Volker Staub and Bokan Gawek, member of the so-called third generation of the militant Red Army faction RAF group. They are wanted for suspected involvement in a series of robberies and at least one attempted murder. As of Sunday evening, the suspects were still not in custody. A third member, Daniel Klett, was arrested last week after 3 decades on the run. A police spokesperson from the German state of Lower Saxony, which was participating in the effort, had earlier said several people had been detained but later said the two they sought had not been found. Police on Saturday published a series of photos it believed to be of Gawek in the years between 2021 to 2024. Side-by-side photos were shown with what Gawek would look like in a cap, bald, wearing glasses and without. The search follows the arrest last week. A combined training exercise between the armed forces of Japan and India called Dharma Guardian was held in western Bikaner city in India on Sunday. The exercise, conducted annually and alternatively hosted by both Asian countries, aims to foster military cooperation and improve the capability of executing joint operations. This is the 5th edition of the exercise between the Indian Army and the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force. The exercise, held in India and Japan alternatively, is a reflection of the enhanced bilateral security and strategic cooperation between the two countries. The Indian and Japanese Army practiced and performed various battle drills like target shootings and helicopter exercises to prepare for semi-desert operations. The military exercise is scheduled to run its course for 2 weeks. While the overall goal has remained the same in terms of developing interoperability between the two forces, in recent years the exercise has become more complex and has contributed to the better familiarization between the Indian and Japanese army personnel. Military engagements between India and Japan have been steady, in line with the political and strategic goals for their partnership in ensuring a stable and secure Indo-Pacific and preventing hegemony in Asia. Now, over 30,000 protesters gathered in Seoul on Sunday to stage a mass rally and protest against a government plan to increase medical school admissions. The South Korean government plans to increase medical school admissions by 2,000 starting from 2025 to remedy what it said is a shortage of doctors in one of the world's fastest aging societies. Thousands of young doctors have stopped working in major hospitals this month, straining emergency departments. Authorities on Friday stepped up pressure to end the walkout, with the South Korean police launching a raid targeting officials of the Korean Medical Association. The government had given Thursday as the deadline for the doctors to return or face penalties, but Health Ministry data showed more than 2/3 of the trainee doctors, or nearly 9,000, had ignored the call to return to work. Several ministers have threatened to protesters with legal action, including suspending their licenses, while also inviting the doctors to hold talks to end the dispute. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, nonetheless, has maintained the same hardline stance in saying he will not continue to move forward with the medical school admission quota decision. Up next in sports, City prevail against rival Manchester United. Stay tuned. All right, kicking off our sports segment, Phil Foden scored twice as Manchester City came from behind to beat Manchester United 3-1 this morning and close to within 1 point of Premier League leaders Liverpool. Erling Haaland also struck in stoppage time to leave the title race perfectly poised ahead of City's trip to Liverpool on 10th March. Marcus Rashford's wonder strike had fired United into a shock lead at the Etihad. Haaland was then guilty of a miss that will go down in Premier League folklore when he fired over with an open goal just before half-time. Foden ensured City did not slip up in the title race as he blasted into the top corner to level and produced a composed finish 10 minutes from time. Haaland then rolled in his sixth goal in 4 Premier League derbies against United to atone for his earlier miss. An 11th league defeat of the season for United leaves Erik ten Hag's men 11 points adrift of the top 4 with 11 games remaining. The former Ajax boss was furious that City's equalizers was allowed to stand as he claimed Rashford had been fouled at the other end seconds later. But United could have a few complaints after being thoroughly outplayed by their rivals for almost the entire match. Now on to tennis, third seed Alex de Minaur successfully defended his Mexican Open crown on Saturday, romping to a 6-4, 6-4 victory over Casper Ruud in the Acapulco title clash. The result helped the 25-year-old Australian snap a 4-match losing run in finals and bang his 8th ATP Tour title to secure his place in the top 10 of the world rankings. The world number 9 drew first blood for a 2-1 lead in the opening set as the 6-seeded Norwegian Ruud, who battled through tough 3-setters against Ben Shelton and Holger Rune in the prior 2 rounds, appeared slightly off the pace. But like he did in those matches, Ruud responded strongly to grab an early break in the second set, only for de Minaur to pull level at 2-2 before getting his nose in front in the 7th game with a stinging forehand winner. With the momentum swinging his way, de Minaur wrapped up the match with a solid service game and celebrated being the first man-to-man retain the Acapulco title in 12 years. De Minaur will put any further partying on ice, however, as he said he would jet off to San Diego, where his girlfriend Katie Bolter of Britain will play in the final against Ukrainian Marta Kostyuk. Elsewhere, Britain's Katie Bolter and Ukraine's Marta Kostyuk advanced to the WTA San Diego Open final with powerful semi-final triumphs on Saturday, ousting 2 of the top 3 seeds. Bolter, ranked 49th in the world, upset US third seed Emma Navarro 6-3, 6-1 in 74 minutes, while 6th Kostyuk ousted US top seed Jessica Pegula 7-6, 6-1. Each of Sunday's finalists seeks a second career WTA title. Kostyuk, ranked 34th, won last year at Austin, while Bolter took her lone crown at Nottingham last year. Bolter, whose week in Southern California has included an upset of second-seeded Beatrice Haddad-Maia, was in control from the outset against 26th-ranked Navarro, who won her first WTA title in January at Hobart. Bolter broke twice to pocket the first set. She was up 6-3, 1-love when a sudden shower briefly halted play. The short stoppage didn't help Navarro, who surrendered a break when they resumed as Bolter took a 3-love lead in the set. Bolter's first hiccup came in the 5th game, but she saved 2 break points with thumping serves and held the 4-4-1. She polished off the victory with a love game, punctuated a booming overhead on match point.
That's another seed who's fallen to the British number 1.
Meanwhile, Kostyuk had lost her first 2 career matches against 5th-ranked Pegula, most recently in last year's Australian Open. Kostyuk was trailing 5-1 in the first set before turning things around in a dramatic fashion and going on to claim her first top 5 win in 1 hour and 35 minutes. Pegula was chasing a 5th WTA title in the first semi-final of the year. It was her first event since the Australian Open after withdrawing from Doha and Dubai with a neck injury. Rafa Nadal said he hopes to avoid any injury setbacks at Indian Wells so he can be fully fit for the upcoming clay court season in what could be his final year on the ATP Tour. A 37-year-old who has won 14 of his 22 Grand Slam titles on the red clay of Roland Garros has suggested his career would be coming to a close and missed this year's Australian Open due to pain in his surgically repaired hip.
Well, I just didn't play anything since Brisbane, and before Brisbane was 1 year without playing, so for me it's very difficult to predict how I can see myself in a competitive mood. No, I need at least to spend more time on the tour, at least to practice with the professional players, and even if not playing many official matches, play practice matches. That's the important thing right now, to be on rhythm again. I mean, gonna be difficult. The next probably Indian Wells, maybe a difficult tournament. I was not able to prepare myself the way that I expected. I had to pull out from Doha. So let's see.
Former world number one Nadal is a three-time Indian Wells champion and plays his first round match on Thursday at the tournament in the Southern California desert. He was previously said his goal was to play the French Open and Paris Olympics this year. Now moving on to basketball, LeBron James on Saturday became the first NBA player to score 40,000 career, hitting a scoop layup off the glass in the second quarter of the Los Angeles Lakers home game against the Denver Nuggets.
Productive as well.
The sold-out crowd in downtown Los Angeles roared with approval when James made the highly anticipated shot to reach 40,000 points and gave him a standing ovation when he went to the bench at the next break. The four-time champion King James became the league's scoring king just over a year ago when he passed Lakers great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The 39-year-old, who is the oldest player in the NBA but continues to produce at an elite level in his 21st season, where he is on track to average about 25 points per game. Drafted into a league as a teenager, the Akron, Ohio native has more than delivered on the massive expectations put on his broad shoulders at a young age. A versatile forward, he helped usher in the era of position-less basketball, winning 4 titles with 3 different teams, 4 MVP awards, and 4 final MVP awards. Olaf Koech won the opening stage of Paris-Nice by Harris' breadth from Matt Pedersen on Sunday when the 158-kilometer hilly run came down to a mass sprint. The 22-year-old is shaping up as one of the top sprinters in the peloton after his 3rd win of the season, and also took the overall lead of the 8-day race from the Paris region to the Riviera town of Nice. Belgium's Remco Evenepoel, who's using race as the warm-up for his tilt at the Tour de France this summer, gamely attacked the final hill to take the 4 bonus seconds. Many of the pure sprinters failed to keep up the pace on the final climb at Les Mureaux to the south of Paris. Dylan Groenewegen was over 3 minutes down and Fabio Jakobsen almost 7 minutes behind. Evenepoel's key rival, Slovenia veteran Primož Roglic, on his first major outing since quitting Visma for Bora, had a modest ride hiding mainly in the wheels. A late entry on the roster, Ineos former Tour and Giro winner Egan Bernal was in the mix for both the bonus points on the climb and the sprint as his comeback from life-threatening injuries continued. And with that, we conclude World Today. Our story of the day, U.S. Vice President calls for an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza war. For the latest, do join us again at 8:30 tonight over TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM. Till then, from river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Thank you for watching.